What is up, everyone? We have a very special guest for you. I told you guys that I was going to get a Canadian power seller, an Australian power seller, and a UK power seller. This is one of my good friends, Louis Sivan. He has been gracious enough to come and talk to us and answer a few questions as far as how a seller from the Australia, Oceania, New Zealand type area is able to sell on the USA market. And so if you want to give a little introduction about how you got into the Amazon FBA world, please feel free and welcome to the show.
Okay, thank you very much. I am originally from South Africa and moved about 10 years ago to New Zealand, and then very recently have moved full-time into Australia and live now in Sydney.
Nice.
I'm a chartered accountant and was involved in property, but sold the business and was looking for something to do. Watched YouTube videos, found this amazing FBA,
and the rest is history.
Doing it for 2 years.
Perfect. Okay, so then we share something. We were both accountants in past lives, and we left that drudgery behind us. So that's a very good thing. And without further ado, we are going to kick it off because we don't like to ever waste time or have any fluff. So let's get right to the questions. So these are the questions that my students voted. We have a lot of people from Oceania, from Australia, from New Zealand, from that area of the world, and they want to get started on Amazon FBA, or they are already starting, and they just kind of want to make sure that they're set up in the best way from a tax perspective, from a business perspective, and things like that. So the first question that we have for you from the student group is, do you have any recommendations for setting up a company living in Australia? What's the process you use and like selling in the USA? Do you recommend setting up like an LLC or an equivalent in Australia, or do you recommend setting one up in the USA?
So I've done both. I started out thinking that I was cleverer than Amazon. And so I started out by setting up an LLC in the United States. One of these things where everything was like I came up with a US address which forwarded post to me in New Zealand, and a US telephone number which forwarded the telephone number to me in New Zealand, and I did that first. And I can talk about that, but what I want to say is that was just a bad idea.
Okay.
There was no reason to do it. Because all along you have to be providing proof of address. So every step along the way, whether you're dealing with freight forwarding, whether you're dealing with Amazon, people want to know, are you real? Where are you? What's your bank account? And the more kind of not real it is, the harder it is. And there was no reason to have a US company, a US LLC.
Right.
The only reason I did that was because when I started looking for products, I thought that I could actually find some sellers in America, in the States, that would sell to me and would only really feel comfortable selling to a US company. And that's kind of, I think, why I did it. But now I'm not doing that at all. I'm doing 100% private label, and I would recommend fully to anyone that you must do a Australian company or a New Zealand company.
So how do you actually have the company set up then in Australia, or is it in New Zealand? Like, do you want to give some specifics on the best way to set that up for people who are based in New Zealand or Australia and are wanting to sell in the USA?
Okay, so there's two different things. The one is setting up a company that you can do anything with, because the selling in the USA is only part of what the company does. The company's going to have a bank account. The company's going to be buying stock from factories in China or whatever.
Right.
And a company might sell in other countries, not only in the States. So you've got a company. You set it up online, and it's very, very simple. You can do it, for example, in New Zealand. You can do it just online. Same with Australia. Since I've moved from New Zealand to Australia, I've just kept all my New Zealand companies. But you set it up online. You elect yourself as a director. You need your proof of address. Then once you've got that set up, you then go and open up a bank account,
right?
Which is equally easy process in Australia and New Zealand, unlike other parts in the world. It's very, very straightforward. With your company documents, you get your bank account details.
Right.
For Amazon, your company, your bank account everything has to tie up. In other words, your bank account address has to match your bank statement. Your address in your bank statement has to match your address that you tell Amazon this is where you live. And it gets very, very difficult if you're not using real addresses and things like that.
Okay. So then that kind of leads us into the second question that my students had, which was, how did you set up your bank account living in Australia but selling in the USA market? And it sounds like it's pretty easy to do that if you do have a Australian LLC. Is that the case?
It's correct. So Amazon has certain kind of countries that it works with, like that you're allowed to sell on FBA,
right?
And New Zealand and Australia are on that list. And if you're not on that list, I can't speak for it. But if you're on that list, what that means is you don't need any US anything.
Right.
I'll get to the EIN later, this sort of US import number. But as far as bank accounts, you just use your regular Australian bank account, regular Australian address, business address, Australian GST number, and you just enter all that information into Amazon USA.
Okay. And for those of you who are, not on the Amazon country list, or you don't know about that, we actually did a YouTube video about, which countries out there in the world do allow you to use your native bank account on Amazon, and which countries allow you to use a service called Payoneer. So if you are questioning about that, if you do live in a different country, then make sure you check out the video about international sellers on our YouTube channel. We go through all of that and how to figure out whether or not you do qualify. So the third question that my students had for you is, how do you handle taxation living in Australia but selling in the USA market? And that being said, we know you're not giving tax advice or anything like that. We just want to know kind of your thoughts on it and your insights.
Don't quote me, and don't do what I do. Okay, so there's two parts of tax. There's GST, and then there is income tax. Okay. GST is you are supposed to pay GST in the States, in your state that you have nexus in. And I don't know if you've done that sort of stuff, but you'll go into that, right?
Right.
So wherever you have your inventory, Amazon gives you a list of states that you have to pay GST to. And that's what you should be doing. Am I doing that? The answer is no. And I think a lot of FBA sellers also don't, just because it seems like it's a great big mess, especially living overseas. And if Amazon got their ducks in a row, they would just start taking the GST from us on behalf of the IRS.
Right.
But they're not. So that's GST. Okay. Then it depends on how closely you follow all the guidelines, but there is not in New Zealand, but in Australia, there is a legal or tax sort of argument that says, well, you have to pay GST in Australia for these sales that you're doing in America, and I don't. So, but everybody must do what they want to do.
Right.
As far as GST is concerned, I don't pay any GST out on any of the sales, but neither am I that stupid to then try and claim GST input, so that you're going to get refunds all the time. So I'm kind of just negligible from a GST point of view.
But all the way around.
Then income tax, which is then I pay income tax. Historically, when I lived in New Zealand, I paid income tax on any money that came into New Zealand. And now that I'm in Australia, I'm going to pay income tax, Australian income tax, on any income that comes into Australia. What is the income that comes into Australia? Every 2 weeks when Amazon pays you and that money goes into your registered Australian bank account, then that counts as money coming in. Whichever accounting software you use, whatever you use, you'll then, that's the money in that you pay tax on.
Right.
But then obviously all your expenses, such as buying of inventory from factories, advertising on Amazon, all that sort of stuff, all your expenses are deducted against that, and then you're paying tax on your profit, which is fair.
Right. Okay, cool. So thank you. That does answer our question. And I think a lot of other people are kind of like that. Whether you're in the USA as well, right? Taxes are very complicated. For the most part, it boils down to nexus, where you owe specific state taxes to, and whether or not if you sell one unit in Rhode Island, are you really going to file a state return how you're technically supposed to on that 15 cents of taxation that you do owe, right? So it's all risk versus reward. We do recommend that you talk to your CPA or an accountant in some way, but it is nice to hear kind of what some
Your
of.
accountant hasn't given up being an accountant and selling full time on Amazon.
Yeah, hopefully your accountants aren't us, because we don't want to be accountants anymore. So hopefully you have accountants that actually want to be accountants. So the next question that we have for you is, have you ever sold in any other markets besides the USA? And if not, or if so, tell us about it. And then also, how do you kind of feel about Amazon coming to Australia?
Okay. So I was the second person to find that inflatable beach sort of couch.
Oh, the Lamzac inflatable couch.
I found it early, and and I placed a big order in China to get these inflatable beach bags, and then by the time the Chinese factory had my order ready to ship, I then realized on Amazon that there were like 10,000 sellers, and I never compete, and I paid way too much, and I made a decision at that point to bring the inventory to my house, which was in New Zealand, and I was just going to try and sell it. So I then created a Shopify store, set up PayPal, did Facebook advertising, had 1,000 boxes in my garage, and then every day, like I get in the morning, I'd be like, oh no, 12 sales, crap, I got to pack 12 boxes, and so it was hard in that I literally with these own two hands I fulfilled like 1,000 boxes. So and I kind of did it in order to teach myself a lesson, never to do it again. So on the one hand, I made a bit of money, and it certainly can work. But I think you have to kind of specialize, and if you're going to go a Shopify route and selling to New Zealand, doing shopping centre expos, same with Australia, you can do that. But I'm finding I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it out of choice. I'll do it if I kind of have to.
Right. So that's two important lessons for anyone watching, right? About the beauty of Amazon FBA, taking the kind of grunt work, drudgery of actually fulfilling things yourself, right? If you have heavy things, obviously it gets much worse. And the second lesson for people, right, there's always a way out. So even if you do your due diligence, you do everything right, you get the product into the Amazon FBA warehouse, and then some external factor changes and you can't sell it on Amazon, there usually is a way out. You just have to be resourceful like Lewis was, and you'll be A-okay if you're willing to put the work in, shipping out 12 inflatable couches per day. So the next question we have for you is about currency conversion. So kind of talk about how does it work living in Australia, having a bank account in Australia, but getting paid in USD from your customers, obviously, that are paying in USD in the United States.
Yeah. So first of all, everything can work. Let's talk on getting money in. Amazon pays into your bank account in Australian dollars. They give you a conversion rate themselves, and I guess maybe when I'm big and grown up and I've got thousands of Amazon accounts and hundreds of staff, maybe I could then start looking at, hold on, is that exchange rate really good enough, and is there maybe a more efficient way? But certainly for now, it works.
Right.
And it's the cost of doing business, and it's the cost of selling into the US, living in Australia. I imagine that there are some exchange charges. But the money arrives in my Australian bank account in Australian dollars, like no problem at all.
Okay.
Then you have to pay out to factories. I use factories in China, India, and the States, and you have to pay in US dollars. So your bank in Australia, you can do online banking. You can make the online payment to the in US dollars to overseas. It can be a bit expensive doing it through your bank, And so I make use of a company called HiFX, HIFX.com. And basically, they just come like an intermediary where you pay locally into their bank account, and then you set up the instruction that they must pay in US dollars somewhere in a particular country, and the fees are just a bit less. It's just the cost of doing business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So there are ways to try to minimize that. We will talk about that in our next kind of interview with the UK gentleman, because he doesn't like losing even that half percentage. So he's going to talk about his little method to kind of get around that. So if you guys are interested, check out that other video. But for now, we're going to move on.
From that, yeah.
What?
Because from a business guidance point of view, if you only have 8 hours a day, or if you're an entrepreneur, you only have 23 hours a day, right? And in those 23 hours, if you're going to be focusing on things like exchange charges, yeah, you've got to get your first product in. It's so hard, and it's so difficult, and if you're going to be stuck on these little things, I guarantee you're not going to get your product in, and it's not going to work. Yeah. So kind of get in there, get going, and then you use that kind of Japanese Kaizen, forever improving. And yes, next month maybe you're going to trim 0.5% off your charges, and the following month you can trim another 0.5%. But I wouldn't even think about it. Tens of thousands of dollars coming in every month from Amazon USA, before you start focusing on that.
Right. Yeah, and that's obviously a great point and well said, and I have nothing to add to that. Focus on getting a product in, focus on finding the right product, focus on getting it up, right? You're going to learn as you go, and you just take it from there. If you focus on the little stuff, you'll get bogged down, you'll get overwhelmed, and you'll never do it, and you'll never leave that cubicle as an accountant like I forced myself to leave. And Lewis. So the next question for you is, were you profitable at first on your first product, or did it take you several products to become profitable? How long were you selling on Amazon before you could do it full time?
I'm lucky in that I had sold a business, and I had capital, and I gave myself 1 year to get profitable. And so I started on Amazon full time with no experience, and I was very lucky, because I was able to do that.
Yeah.
Straight away, I took the approach that said, I'm not going to try and find this diamond product that is going to sell 500 units a day, and I'm going to market research it to death and do all that sort of stuff. For a few reasons. Number one is that I'm kind of scared of having a great product, like an amazing product. Everybody's going to be on my back. Everyone's going to be trying to hijack me, copy me, do it better than me. Amazon's going to try and take it over. So kind of just maybe beware having this amazing product. And so if you could have a product that sells 500 a day, or if you could have the headspace to be able to control and coordinate 500 different products, each selling one a day, you're going to make the same amount of money. Don't stuff up in that if you're going to try and only sell one a day, you're going to have so much inventory that the one a day is going to take you 10 years to sell out. So kind of just make sure that your inventory levels are okay. But I'm kind of in the school of thought that says I'd rather sell 30. There was the whole Jungle Scout. You got to sell 30. Whatever it is. I did it the other way around. I said I'd rather sell 30 products doing one versus one doing 30, provided you get your inventory levels right. Don't sit with 10,000 units, which you're going to sell one a day.
Right.
Then you might strike it lucky and hit a diamond, out of your products that you're really doing. And that's kind of what's happened with me. Products that I never thought in a million years were actually going to sell well, but are now doing quite well.
Right.
So how long did it take to get profitable? I would say within a year, I was breaking even. And what I call breaking even means that it was paying for my living expenses. I was not creating wealth. I was just, everything that I was getting, I was spending for living and food and stuff like that.
Right.
So within about 6 months, I got to the point where it was paying me a salary, and I could live off it.
Right.
But that's not where I want to end. I mean, I want to create wealth. And so over and above breaking even, meaning not the business breaking even, my lifestyle breaking even, over and above, living hand to mouth, I want to be able to bring in more money than I'm spending and create wealth.
Right. And so we're gonna mention that Lewis has 3 private jets and 2 Ferraris, so his lifestyle, takes a little bit of money to keep up with. But he makes a few important points, right? Talking about inventory forecasting. We talk about that in the course. If you follow any of the stuff that I do on YouTube, we talk about the fact that we're not looking for that product selling 500 a day. It brings too much competition, too much, everyone saw what happened with the fidgets, right? And now the people that jumped in on that too late have, 5,000, 10,000 in stock, and they're not selling at all, right? So we'd rather have a product in the 5 to 15,000 a month revenue range, right? In the 10,000 give or take profit per month range, just to keep, too many eyes off of you, but to keep it worth your while actually putting in the work to create that infrastructure. And a point that Lewis is, he's being very humble, but a point that he's not mentioning is, once you kind of do the upfront work for these products, the downstream profitability and reiterated income is significantly less work than it was upfront, right? So all of these products that he put the work in to set up now are basically creating passive income for him, allowing him to create these new opportunities for himself, right?
So
And so
I work full time on Amazon, full time, but of my day, I'm spending maybe 90% of my day on new products.
Right, exactly.
And so I'm spending 10% of my day servicing my annuity income.
Exactly. And that right there, everyone should think about 10 times, because that is the beauty of Amazon FBA, building the infrastructure, building the equity, right? Building the barrier to entry for these products through reviews, through, that page rank and keyword rank, and kind of the grandfathered nature of, historical aged products that, we are building, adding these products to our portfolios as time passes. So the next question we have for you, you mentioned earlier, you kind of knew that I was going to bring it up. Do Australian sellers require an EIN? And if so, how does this work? What is the business structure you recommend?
Okay, so an EIN is a number which you get from the IRS from America. You phone up and you say, can I have an EIN? And you say, and over the telephone they can give it to you. So when I initially did it, I was trying to have this facade of having a US company, and that's why I did it with an EIN, got an EIN, very simple, no problem. But I have a number of different accounts on Amazon, and one of my more recent ones from Australia, no EIN, never asked for it. It just, Amazon questionnaire just said, are you resident in America? The answer is no. Give all your Australian tax details, and there's no need for it.
And a passport, correct?
Say again?
Do they require a passport in that case, or no?
Yes. They need that. You need to prove who you are, and you can't get away from that. And that's why I found if you do it anything other than exactly how it is, it's impossible.
Right.
So that Amazon will require a copy of your passport, a copy of some sort of a proof of address, which will be your bank statement, and
okay.
You just use a regular Australian bank statement.
All right, cool. So yeah, it's not as complicated as people think, right? Again, don't let yourselves get bogged down by the details, right? Nothing can stop you as an Amazon FBA seller. Nothing can stop you getting away from that 9-to-5 job and kind of getting the freedom that everyone, is working towards. So the next question we have for you is, what would you tell yourself? What would you tell yourself, knowing what you do now, if you were just starting out selling on Amazon FBA again?
Number one, never give up, because I thought about giving up a lot. It was very difficult, that's number one. Number two is you 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 have to take ownership of your own decisions, because at the end of the day, you're carrying the can. So if somebody will say to you, you have to do this on your listing, they're not going to lose money. You're going to lose money. You have to take ownership of it. It's your so. I mean, I guess that's a pretty silly thing. And keep going. You want to find a product that makes $1,000 profit a month. I mean, that is the sweetest product there is. It's $1,000 a month, and you want 8 or 10 of those products, and you set up profit a month, and you just keep looking for it. They're out there. It's not hard, and you'll get them.
Right. Okay, yeah. So I mean, those are great points, obviously, right? And he's being conservative again. $1,000 profit a month is very doable for products. And whether you're kind of going about the path trying to find that one product that's generating the $3,000, $5,000, even $10,000 range versus finding 10 products that do that $1,000 range, you're going to be okay either way. So another point that I think is important to touch on is the seasonality of products and the importance of Q4, right? So for a lot of sellers out there, including me, and I'm sure I'm not going to speak for you, but I would assume including you, people are doing 50% or more of their annual sales during just Q4. Would you say that is accurate for you? And could you talk a little bit about Q4?
Man, it's Q4. Jeez, it's all I think about. It's all I've been going mad for Q4 already for about the last 2 months. And I remember a quote that somebody just left in a Facebook group in January this year where he said, note to self, when planning next year's Q4 inventory, work out accurately what you're going to need, multiply by 10, and you'll thank me, and that's just stuck with me. So two things happen in Q4, or let's say 3 things even happen in Q4. I sold out around the end of November in my best-selling products, and then people sell out all the way through December. But if you think when people actually are doing their Christmas shopping, they're doing it in that between the 15th, 18th of December, almost the 20th of December. At points, it can get so close to December that only Amazon can ship it in time. And even if you bought it yourself at the mall, you wouldn't get it to your aunt or whatever that you want to send the gift to. And so come that last week of December, there are a few things in play. Number one, everybody else is sold out. So if you were one of 10 sellers, each of you were selling 100 a month, and sorry about the phone.
It's all good.
So nobody phones me. If you run an Amazon business, no one ever phones me. So if you're a regular seller and there's 10 of you and all 10 of you are selling 100 a month, come Christmas, 2 things are happening. Number one, 7 or 8 of those sellers have chickened out, not ordered enough stock, and they've sold out. Then there's not 10 of you trying to sell to the buyers. There's only 2 or 3 of you. And the buyers are not buying a regular amount. They're buying like 5 or 6 or 7 times more. And if you're brave enough to have the stock, then you're going to be selling 15 or 20 times more than what you would normally sell.
Right.
Assume it's a gift product,
right.
not like I sell some products in health. That there's no Q4. I sell some products in office and stationery and things like that. And there's no Q4 things. But a regular gift. You just have to literally put the house on it. I mean, that's what I've done. I've gone to the bank with a business plan. I said, these are my numbers. I suspect that I'm going to be selling 20 or 30 times these numbers in those final weeks of the year, and I need finance to buy the inventory now in July, August, to ship it in so that I'm going to be there.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, until you experience Q4 as a seller, you just can't possibly understand, right? So if you have gift-oriented products, which again, if you follow any of the stuff I talk about, I always preach that you should, be focused on gift-oriented products. Your return rates are incredibly lower just because of the taboo of returning a gift, right? And then the seasonality of different holidays, right? There's a ton in America: Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's Day, Halloween, Christmas, Thanksgiving, all of them, right? Q4 is just unbelievable, and until you experience it, you can't really truly understand. But take it from Lewis, 10 to 20 times what you're normally experiencing is definitely not unheard of, and it's definitely possible to do so. Okay, so 2 more questions from the students, and then we will let you go. We know we've taken up some of your time already. So could you recommend software you use to track your profits and expenses and to prepare for taxes? And do you have a recommendation for an accountant / CPA living in Australia?
Okay, so I make use of Xero, Xero. It's kind of an online accounting software. It can tie in with Amazon if you wanted it to, meaning every single sale you make on Amazon actually gets accounted for in Xero as the sale with the invoice number, which is just a crazy idea. Whoever would think of doing that would be crazy. I mean, just because you're dealing with thousands of sales. And so I just account for my accounting software. But I do make use of standalone software to help me account for and run my Amazon business. I make use of forecasting software called Forecastly, and that's been working well for me. Trying to think what other accounting software.
So how do you actually export data? Like, how do you get data into Xero? Are you manually, entering totals, or what exactly are you doing for the people out there who don't have experience doing this themselves?
So Xero is very, very easy, and because what it does is it connects directly with a bank feed. You just do it online, and it connects to your bank account, your Australian bank account. And so what that means is any money that comes in or any money that goes out needs to be explained what that is. That explaining is the accounting of it. Okay. And so Xero is going to say to you, well, what is this $10,000 from the US? And you go, well, that's money from Amazon. They go, okay, and so you're accounting for your cash coming in and you account for your cash going out, and the difference between the two is, your profits, and so it's quite straightforward. It's not hard. Don't get stuck on that. Especially in the beginning, if you only got 1 or 2 products, you can account for it just on a piece of paper. I mean, you're going to place an order for a factory. I mean, you don't need a piece of software to tell you that you've placed an order. It's going to be $10,000. You're going to have to pay it and ship it. And so, don't get too stuck on the accounting.
Okay.
And then, as far as the CPA goes, any CPA can help you. I would avoid going for someone that's like an expert in Amazon or something like that, because that just probably sounds expensive. Because your business is just living in Australia selling stuff. The fact that it's American based is neither here nor there. Your money that you're coming in is what you're paying tax on.
Okay. And so my students had another question, kind of a small one, but important nonetheless. Do you kind of make use of any credit card bonuses? Because we, as Amazon sellers, we have a huge amount of expenses, right, with PPC and everything. Could you talk about that for New Zealand or Australian-based folks, how they can take advantage of those delicious credit card points?
Only if you promise me that you're doing that once you've already got products selling. You're not building your Amazon business thinking about, well, how am I going to make money on credit cards, because that's not where the money is, right?
Of course.
So find your product and your product selling. Then yes, I do as much as possible use my credit card. I use PayPal as much as possible. and the same credit card is on PayPal, and I earn points, and this is my accountant coming out. The points I earn get converted to my kind of investments with the bank, like annuities at the bank, and so I'm saving for my retirement by using my credit card. So the one very golden rule that everybody must do is make sure that their advertising, sponsored advertising, is charged to their credit card and not to the Amazon account. That's number one.
Right.
But then don't be stupid in trying to put too much onto your credit card, because when you pay with your credit card, let's say using PayPal, you're paying quite a high fee. And so on the one hand, you might be making 0.5% of it back, but you're going to end up paying a 3 or 4% fee more than if you just did a wire transfer.
Right.
And so there's a kind of a break-even point. In my calculations, it's $1,000 US. And so if something is under $1,000, you can pay for it on PayPal, and that's the best way to do it. But as soon as things get more than $1,000, like a factory or sample, or like a deposit or something like that, then I'm using my high FX wire transfers.
Okay, cool. So that is the end of our questions. Thank you so much again for coming on. I'm sure a lot of Australian and New Zealand-based sellers are very appreciative of it. If you have, just one kind of maybe the biggest mistake you've made, or just an insight that you've learned recently that you want to kind of give people as like a closing note, just to kind of incite some of your wisdom on us. It can be anything, whether a mistake or something that you've learned recently or something, just to kind of leave us on the old New Zealand Aussie happy note.
Well, I guess that mine is that you can't market research a product to be absolutely sure. You have to have the heart and the tolerance to take a little bit of a risk, and you have to order as low a quantity as possible on as many different products as possible, and therein you will find what is actually selling.
Right.
And so I would urge that to anyone. Instead of buying 10,000 of one, try and buy 20 different products, 500 units of each. Yes, you're going to pay more shipping. Yes, you're going to pay more everything. But therein you'll find your little golden nugget.
Right. Yeah, and the moral of the story I heard there is, find somebody who is an expert at product research. I'm not saying me, but, somebody out there who can teach you, how to do your due diligence and take as much of the risk out of it as possible. And then, go for small MOQs and, sample a bunch of different products, reinvest quickly in the ones that work, and just let the ones that don't, kind of sell themselves out slowly, and basically scale your business from there. So thank you so much again, Lewis. We do appreciate it. I'm sure that we probably will get a lot of questions for you. So I will maybe provide Lewis's contact information until he gets overwhelmed by the questions, and maybe we could have him on the show again. So thank you so much, Lewis, and we will talk to you again soon.
Okay.